This happened in the early 70s when I was employed as a forest ranger. I loved what I did because I was never a social person. I hardly had friends, and working alone and not under direct supervision was one of the perks I enjoyed the most. I found that I was able to focus better and be more productive when I didn't have to engage in constant social interactions. It allowed me to work at my own pace and in my own way, without feeling the pressure of having to conform to a certain social dynamic. I also appreciated the independence that came with working alone. I was able to make decisions without having to consult with others, and I had the freedom to structure my day in a way that suited me best. This level of autonomy was something that I valued greatly, and it made me feel more in control of my work and my environment. However, there were times when the isolation could be a bit overwhelming. The forest could be eerily quiet, and the solitude could sometimes get to me. There were moments when I longed for some human interaction, but those moments were few and far between. My job usually consisted of keeping the forest and the surrounding area safe from any fire and other potential hazards. I would also inspect the condition of the trees and vegetation to ensure that they were healthy and not at risk of catching fire. In addition to this, I would also engage in community outreach and education programs to raise awareness about fire safety and prevention. This involved conducting workshops, distributing informational materials, and working with local schools and community groups to promote fire safety. I would also participate in training exercises and drills to ensure that I was prepared to respond to any emergency situations. I also worked with other rangers to maintain trails, monitor wildlife, and enforce park regulations. It was a rewarding job that allowed me to be outdoors and make a positive impact on the environment. One wintry night, while I was in the lookout tower reading a book, I thought I heard someone whistling in the woods. I looked at the clock we had in the tower and saw it was just after 4 a.m. Seeing or hearing someone out in the woods at that hour was not out of the ordinary. I had come across occasional hikers who hiked at night for the experience and the thrill. However, this time it was different. The whistling was eerie and seemed to be coming from all directions at once. It was as if the sound was surrounding the tower, and I couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from. I tried to brush it off as just the wind playing tricks on me. But the whistling continued, growing louder and more persistent. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it out into the darkness, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was making the noise. But there was nothing there. The whistling continued, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. Then, out in the distance, I noticed a person who looked like a man in his early 40s. He was walking slowly, his figure barely visible through the thick underbrush. He was carrying what looked like a big black bag on his shoulder, and he seemed to be heading towards a secluded part of the forest. My heart raced as I watched him, a sense of foreboding settling over me. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. Should I approach him and ask if he needed help? Or should I stay hidden and observe from a distance? The man seemed to be moving with purpose, his steps deliberate and unwavering. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right about the situation. As I debated with myself, the man disappeared from view, swallowed up by the dense foliage. I decided to call for backup, and radio into my colleague to search the area in his ATV, and I kept an eye from the lookout tower with my binoculars for any movement out in the woods. After a thorough search, we were still unable to locate the man or the black bag. We reported the incident to our supervisor and continued to keep an eye out for any further suspicious activity in the area for the remainder of the night. The next day when I reported for my duty, I saw red and blue lights and yellow tape surrounding the woods. Apparently, during the morning after I finished my shift, a couple of hikers stumbled upon a black bag which had a foul smell. After reporting it to the police, it turned out to be a mutilated, decomposed body of a woman. The police were asking all the rangers if we had seen anything unusual during our shifts yesterday, and I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. I didn't want to believe that the body could have been there while I was working, but the thought lingered in my mind. I was questioned by the police, and I told them everything I could remember from my previous shift. The whole incident left me feeling uneasy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister had been lurking in the forest while I was there. They were never able to identify the woman or the suspect. The incident haunted me for a long time, and I found it increasingly difficult to focus on my work. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something important that night, and it weighed heavily on my mind. I started having trouble sleeping, and the whistling sound echoed in my dreams, leaving me feeling anxious and on edge. I became more vigilant in my patrols, constantly scanning the forest for any signs of suspicious activity. Every rustle of the leaves and every distant sound made me jump, and I found it hard to relax even when I was off duty. The once peaceful and serene forest now felt like a place of hidden dangers and secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I tried to bury myself in my work, throwing myself into community outreach programs and fire safety initiatives, hoping that the distraction would help me forget the unsettling events of that night. But no matter how hard I tried, the memory of the whistling man and the discovery of the body lingered in the back of my mind, casting a shadow over everything I did. Eventually, I made the difficult decision to leave my job as a forest ranger. The forest, once my sanctuary, had become a place of fear and unease, and I knew that I needed a fresh start. I moved to a different town and found work in a different field, but the memories of that night continued to haunt me. Years passed, and the memory of the whistling man and the discovery of the body slowly faded into the background of my life. I tried to move on, but the experience had left a lasting impact on me. And I found it hard to fully shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my bones. To this day, I still can't help but wonder what might have happened if I had approached the man that night, or if I had been more vigilant in my observations. Was he a serial killer? Was it a murder in the heat of the moment? Or was it a premeditated cold-blooded murder? The thought that I might have missed a chance to prevent a tragedy still weighs heavily on my conscience, and I can't help but feel a sense of guilt for not being able to do more. I often find myself thinking about the victim's family and friends, and how their lives were forever changed by this senseless act of violence. It's a sobering reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of being aware of our surroundings and looking out for one another. I hope that by sharing my story, it serves as a reminder to others to trust their instincts and take action if they suspect something is wrong. I may never know the full truth of what happened that night. The experience changed me in ways I never could have anticipated, and it taught me to be more aware of the world around me. I may have left my job as a forest ranger, but the lessons I learned during my time in the woods will stay with me forever. Back when I moved into town, I was 7 years old, scared yet super excited to meet all of the new people that I could become friends with. So, on my first day at this summer camp type program, I met this boy. He was taller than me by only a few inches, and that day he was dressed in some denim cargo shorts and an oversized gray shirt with a Dino printed on the front. His name was Jake. He was sweet, or as sweet as a 7-year-old boy could be. He would push me around when playing tag but would always say sorry if I fell over, and we would give each other parts of our lunch if we didn't like them and knew the other did. A very normal friendship for a couple of kids. As we grew older, we realized that the town we lived in had really nothing to do. It was small and far away from mostly everything. We had a couple of stores and a few random fast food places, nothing for a couple of growing kids to do outside of school. So, we would both beg hands and knees for our parents to let us walk to the park. Nose would ring out since we were both still very young to be walking alone so far. However, we soon were able to go on our own when we got given cheap flip phones to be able to check in. I swear that thing was my life support, being able to text my dad whenever I wanted and play Snake in class. It was amazing to me as a child. When high school hit, we still remained just as close as always, but during the first week of classes, I noticed that he was uneasy. Something was wrong, but I wasn't sure whether to ask him or not, afraid to make him uncomfortable. So I waited, nearly to the end of the school year. Walking in the hallway, 2 weeks before we let out for summer, I still felt that feeling that Jake just wasn't in the right mind space. I felt like I should have said something a long time ago, but I had a voice in the back of my mind that it wasn't something I wanted to know. That if he told me I wouldn't like it, maybe wished I would have never asked. I went against that. "Jake?" I asked him, earning the boy to look over towards me. He looked so much different now. "Yeah?" he asked, shooting me a slight smile. Though it truly was only a lip twitch. I have been meaning to ask you this for a while, but are you alright? Is something bothering you or anything?" I asked him. I watched his face shift slightly, something I would have easily missed if I hadn't been looking at him. "Why wouldn't I be?" he asked, shaking his head ever so slightly. I felt my heart drop. I shouldn't have asked, and now I know that for sure. No, it's just you haven't really seemed so. "I don't know, I'm sorry, pretend I never said anything," I said, waving it off, but that didn't work with Jake. "Hey, it's okay. Truthfully, I really haven't been alright. But it isn't something I can talk about quite yet," he said, and a million things flew in my head as to what that could even mean. I knew his dad was a single man, his mother having passed away before I ever met him due to an invisible illness of sorts. He didn't talk about her because he truly has nothing to talk about, and according to his dad, she was a very sweet woman who had her quirks. We both never understood what that meant, even now. I sat with Jake on the park bench, the sun setting in the distance. He looked troubled, and I could tell that something was weighing heavily on his mind. I wanted to help, but I didn't want to push him to talk about it if he wasn't ready. "You can talk to me if you like, you don't have to include details, but I don't want you to be sad anymore," I said gently, hoping to offer him some comfort. Jake cracked a small smile at my words. And said he wants to tell me, but just not yet. I didn't want to push him any further, so I agreed. "No worries, I am here when you want to talk," though I reassured him. He placed a warm hand on my shoulder and said, "I know, please don't worry." I just nodded to that. During summer holidays, Jake and I spent a lot of time in the inflatable family-sized pool that my dad set up in the backyard. It was small, but it was just enough for the two of us and sometimes my dog Rufus, a golden lab. As we relaxed in the pool, surrounded by the sounds of nature and soft music, all the stress from the school year seemed like a distant memory. Then, one day Jake brought up a question I had asked him before school ended, and he hinted that he was ready to share the answer with me. I eagerly sat up in the water, ready to hear what he had to say. "Well, the short version of it is I will be leaving with my dad soon," he said, and when he said that, it felt as if my whole world fell apart. We were both, as sad and lonely as it sounded, each other's only friends. If he left, I would be alone. "Wait. Leaving? When?" I asked him quickly. The smile he cracked caused my heart to drop down again. 2 weeks, he said softly, and it truly felt like I had an out-of-body experience. The friend and only friend that I have had since I was 7 years old is moving away in 2 short weeks. The way a mix of sadness, anger, and fear flew through my soul made me nearly fall back into the water again. 2 weeks, and you didn't even tell me?" I asked softly, and he shook his head quickly. "I wanted to, I truly did, but my dad wasn't sure if we were leaving or not," he said, his voice speaking quickly to get his point across. "What does that even mean?" I asked him, and Jake just sighed out. He wiped his face and pushed his mostly wet hair back to try and ease some of the tension building in his skull. "I don't even know how to explain this to you without being confused. Me and my dad are leaving, but even I have no idea where," he said. I stayed silent for him to keep explaining. I was taken aback when Jake, a 14-year-old boy, told me, "When we leave, you need to promise me you won't try and look for us." His words left me even more confused. Why would he be worried that I'd come looking for him? Before I could even ask, Jake quickly cut me off. "Please," he pleaded, his eyes locked onto mine, conveying the sincerity of his request. All I could do was nod. "Yes, I promise." After I said that, Jake quickly got out of the pool, and before I could say anything, he had run out the gate. I was left alone. I didn't see him the next day, or the next day, then the next week. I didn't dare come by his house until he contacted me first. In a way, I felt hurt. He ran away from me after saying he was leaving town and not to come find him after he did. But as the days went on with zero contact, I decided I was going to go by his house and just check on him. I threw on my shoes and left. My dad was at work, so I didn't need to tell him where I was going, especially since he knew exactly where I was going anyways. As I walked, I thought about it all, his words and how he ran away after making me promise something that really made zero sense. I shook my head and rubbed my eyes with my hands, trying to push away all of the thoughts, trying to just focus on not getting hit by a car as I walked down the street of a halfway busy road. Getting to Jake's house, I saw no car in the driveway. His dad must be gone away to work for the last little bit they are in town. I stood on the porch and knocked onto the door, holding open the screen one in order to do so. It takes a moment, but an elder woman I didn't know opened it. "Hi sweetie, who are you?" she asked, movement slow and labored from her age. "I'm looking for Jake," I said to her, and she chuckled softly. "No one lives here but me, love." "Are you at the right home?" she asked, and all I could do was blink at her confused. "No, one of my friends live here," I said, but she shakes her head and laughs again. "You kids and your funny jokes. I have lived here for nearly 43 years and I have never met anyone with the name of Jake. Then again, I don't leave the house much and my memory is getting slower," she tells me, and gives me a soft smile. But I swear I tried but was interrupted by the woman. "It's okay, love, would you care for a slice of cake for your troubles?" she asked me. And for a moment I really did consider that piece of cake. "No ma'am, I don't want to trouble you any more than I have already," I said, and backed up slightly. "Of course, love. You have a nice evening, and if you like, come back for that slice of cake. I don't get many visitors often," she said, and with a soft bye, she closed the all too familiar squeaking door. Weeks went by, and things didn't get any better. I asked my dad, my mom, and even my 10-year-old sister about my friend Jake. Not one of them recalled me having a friend by the name of Jake. They didn't even recall me having a friend to begin with. Saying how I spend more time alone than I do anything else, drawing and playing video games filled my time, and that was really it. Along with that, no matter how long I looked, every single photo of Jake was gone, vanished into thin air. The ones on my phone are wiped clean, and all of my physical photos are just gone. Off my wall, no more books of them from camping trips with our dads, and none that we took in the arcade photo booths. Everything that even gave the slightest hint of this boy was completely gone, and no matter who I asked, no one had any memory. I felt insane, for years. And now 12 years later I still feel like it. However, one piece of proof of this boy Jake existed. One little thing, that for some reason that I may never find out, that shows to me that Jake truly existed. A single group photo from the first day of that summer camp. With me, in a tank top and leggings. Stood beside a boy in an oversized Dino t-shirt, with baggy cargo shorts that reached just past his knees. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Please subscribe and click the bell icon to get notification for all future narrations.